Mother-in-law wants me to invite her work friends to my wedding, which my grandfather is paying for, so I did this. For some context, my mother-in-law is the kind of person who likes to show off the smallest achievements in the grandest way. Even if she has nothing woke or sophisticated in her life, she goes out of her way to play pretend as if she's the talk of our society. The epitome of her ridiculous behavior is the monthly club party she hosts. To clear it up, there is no club, to begin with. She invites a bunch of her friends and her co-workers for an evening party because they're all from the same working field. She calls them her fellow IT geeks, and this has been going on for a long time. She's gone as far as to call these monthly celebrations IT geeks meet and greet, which is cringe. All they do at these parties are one-up each other in vocalizing their monthly achievements. So you can understand how my mother-in-law would have been very eager to tell them that my grandfather has booked a destination wedding for me with a 6-day stay package. This is my grandpa's wedding gift to me, as I've told him countless times about my dream wedding. Anyway, as it was my wedding, I had a small, fully packed guest list. Even though grandpa was paying for most of it, I didn't want him or us to end up booking another hotel just because the number of guests exceeded the number of rooms we were getting in the package. So I discussed with my husband in advance about our situation and asked him to make a priority list of his guests while I did the same. Now I come from a large family, so it was hard to narrow it down, but I ended up inviting 22 people while my husband invited 18. It was a couple of close friends and family members we saw on a regular basis. We finalized them and were all ready to send out the invitations when my mother-in-law came over to our house. I was already offended that she came over unannounced so late in the night. It was 9 p.m, and when she said she wants me to change the guest list, I lost my patience. I don't know why she gets a say in people I want to invite in my wedding, but my husband told me to hear her out. Hearing my husband advocate for her raised warning bells and a frown was already fixed on my forehead. I asked her what changes she wants us to make, and she said that she had already told a few of her work friends about my wedding and had promised them an invitation. She said that as my to-be mother-in-law, she deserves to bring people who are important to her. I confirmed with her if these so-called work friends belong to her IT Geeks group, and she said yes. So I told her clearly that as much as I'd like to for her friends, I simply don't have any space on the list. I looked over to my husband for support, but he kept staring at the carpet. That annoyed me, but I continued explaining to mother-in-law how we had to drop our family members to keep the guest list limited to our budget, but she insisted that I try and make some changes. So I showed her the guest list and told her how every last one of them is someone who we interact with on a daily or weekly basis. They are people who know about all our ups and downs, and there's simply no way to cut them off. So she took the list from me and started analyzing it. She then told me to cut off my cousin's sister I lived with for 7 years of my life after college. Her logic? The said cousin moved to Birmingham last year, and it would be troublesome for her to fly all the way out to the States. When I lost my cool, I asked my husband to talk to her, but he ended up taking her side. He said that it's important for her to invite her people, especially after she told them about the wedding destination and how they'll get an invite. I pursed my lips at that because I didn't know where to even begin arguing when my own fiancée was being ridiculous. I was so mad that I walked out of the room, and the next day I woke up and decided to serve them their own medicine. If they are willing to be so inconsiderate towards my wedding just so they can save face in front of their colleagues, then I'll be inconsiderate too. I called my grandpa and told him about the events of the previous night. When I was done explaining, I told him that I'm not going to try and make them see the logic. Instead, I'll take away the main attraction of their moves. I told my grandpa that I love him, but I'm taking him and grandma off the list along with my dad's brother and his family. I asked grandpa to also take back the gift he was giving me, as he's not invited anymore. I'm thankful that my grandfather understood what I was trying to do here and supported me without being mad or hurt. When I sent my mother-in-law and my fiancé the updated guest list, they were shocked. I told them that's the only people I can take off the list, and I've also lost the wedding venue. I made sure to mention to my husband we'll have to book another venue within the next 2 months or push back the wedding. Not to mention reprint the invitation cards and book a hotel for people who aren't locals. I wanted both of them to understand that none of this would have been possible if it wasn't for someone from my family being generous enough to give us half our wedding. But I didn't expect them to start apologizing for what happened. My mother-in-law came over again and said she's sorry for forcing me to change the list and asked me to call my grandpa and invite him back on the list. She said that I should also ask him not to cancel the hotel he booked or change anything. So I told her why would she apologize now when she got what she wanted. She promised her colleagues an invitation and now they're getting one. That broke her, and she finally said out loud how there's no point in inviting them if the wedding isn't at a destination. She said that there's nothing uncommon about our wedding without it and no one would like to see that. Hearing her say that, my husband actually said he feels sorry he supported her decision, but I wasn't about to let his behavior slide that easily. I told him he shouldn't need me to go to extremes just for him to support me in such obvious situations. He apologized again, but I cleared it once and for all. It's a done deal now. Even if I do invite my grandpa again, we wouldn't get his very generous gift back. Now am I an asshole for sticking to my decision? I know that at the end of the day the wedding is mine and I should focus on myself, but I'm just too petty to go back on what I've done. Does that really make me an a-hole? Update 1. So my mother-in-law isn't finished with creating problems for us. Remember how I mentioned in my original post that I'm not going to ask my grandpa to give us his gift again? Well, that irked my mill so much that she has developed a habit of calling my fiancé every other day and talking about how I'm an ungrateful brat who did this to take revenge. Well, yes I did, and that made me feel great, but to call me ungrateful when she was the one responsible for all of this happening? That was a bit too much. But that's not all. She even started telling my fiancé how he should rethink his life decisions because what I did is just the beginning and this is how his life is going to be if he ends up marrying me. My fiancé was talking on the speaker, so I heard these words, and I'm grateful I did, as I know my fiancé hides anything that could potentially cause trouble in our paradise. He did tell his mom that she's crossing the line, but nothing more than that. I'm a bit annoyed he didn't tell her off properly, but it's his relationship and I know I can't ask him to cut her off because she hates me. But I do know that if she keeps interfering I'll probably end up walking out, as I can't deal with this for the rest of my life. Update 2. So I talked to my grandpa today and told him about the new place we booked for our wedding. I think he's more disappointed than me, as it's not what I have imagined for my entire life, but it's still pretty and I'm happy. I told him he's invited again and that made him laugh. I'm just too overwhelmed with gratitude and love for him because he has always supported me in anything I did, and he did it even now. I also talked to my husband as my mother-in-law's behavior was getting out of hand. I needed to be true to my feelings and told him how this is beginning to be a problem. We had a long chat about how certain things have created an awkwardness between us and what hurt us. In conclusion, he told me that he'd talk to his mom and make sure she understands her place in our lives. I'm hoping now that everything goes smoothly and the wedding moves forward without any more drama. Update 3. I'm married. It's finally done and without any major hassles. Even though it wasn't what I originally pictured, the wedding was beautiful and I couldn't have been happier. I was especially happy to see my mother-in-law sulk in the corner with her work friends who she ended up inviting. Well, I guess there was something for her to show off this time, as my grandpa bought us a house as our wedding gift. It was a joint gift from them and my uncles. Well, at the end of it I'm just happy to start my new life with my husband and wanted to update y'all who were a part of this journey in a way. Opinion 1. Not the a-hole. I hate when people think they have any right to dictate how someone should marry or who they should invite. Tell your mother-in-law her turn is over, and if she wants to show off she can have another one in the future. Ask her to leave you alone. Opinion 2. Not the a-hole. Are you sure you want to marry that guy? Anyone with an ounce of depth would have seen through what mother-in-law was trying to pull, and he still supported her. You're not the asshole, but you do need to pay closer attention to your life choices. So I live in QLD, and my family lives in NSW. My parents and sister, 27 years old, invited themselves up to my house for a week for a holiday, after their cruise was cancelled. I didn't particularly want them here for that long because I'm pregnant and have a 2-year-old, and they are not helpful but didn't say anything. The house isn't really big enough for multiple guests. I have one spare queen-sized bed which my parents were sleeping in. My sister chose to sleep on my couch. She could have slept with me in my bed as my husband is away for work, but she snores and didn't like being kicked every hour to roll over. Anyway, they had been here for 2 days, and during dinner the second night my dad turned to me and said, "I can see you're in a good mood, so I'm going to tell you now. We've invited your sister's boyfriend, of 5 weeks, to fly up and stay with us all for the weekend. He's booked a ticket and will be here on Friday morning at 9 a.m. I've never met him. As mentioned, he's been in the family for 5 weeks. I was never asked beforehand. I don't have any space for him to stay. He would have to sleep on my couch and my sister would have to move into my bed. Or I would have been expected to give up my bed for them. And I would have had the stress of knowing a random stranger was sleeping in my house, while my 2-year-old slept in his cot in his bedroom. I rang my husband and we both agreed that we were going to put our foot down and say no, sorry, it's not happening. Their behavior in inviting a stranger into our house is unacceptable and we don't want him here. So I called my sister while I was at work to let her know. My mother absolutely ripped me a new one, saying I should be ashamed of myself. How dare I question her and my dad's judgment of character? Do I honestly think they would invite someone into my house that couldn't be trusted? They've met him less than 10 times? They ended up hanging up on me, packing their things, leaving my house and texting me telling me my husband has poisoned my mind against them and that they weren't leaving because they were in the wrong. They were only going because I've been a terrible host. I've made them feel so unwelcome and I've turned into a horrible person since getting with my husband 10 years ago. Today, 3 days later, They are trying to call me to hang out with them as if nothing has happened at all over the last few days and can't understand why I'm being like this. Please enlighten me. Am I the a-hole? Did I overreact? Here I am thinking I was being a good parent. Opinion 1, not the a-hole. You didn't invite them and have zero freaking obligation to be a good hostess to a family that literally invaded your home and then invited a fourth extra person who you do not know to come to stay too. The sheer entitlement they have. They really don't like that you're all grown up and making decisions without their permission, do they? Opinion 2, not the a-hole. Now is the time to address boundaries. Reply back, I am not a terrible host as I didn't invite you in the first place. You invited yourselves and just came up and I graciously accommodated you, despite our normal routines. Inviting another person as if you had the right to do so under my roof, was completely unacceptable. Your following tantrum when I didn't accept being browbeaten into giving in, and then your flounce, in which you all decided to leave to another place of accommodation, all the while abusing my character, means going forwards there will be a new routine before I will accept to host you all again. No, I will not go and hang out with you after the incredibly childish scene you carried out in my house. I have had enough of your poor behavior for the moment and will be going low contact for a while with you all until I can face you all again after that poor performance you gave. Opinion 3, not the a-hole. You are not a terrible host, you have been very accommodating of them despite not actually inviting them to stay. They have overstepped by inviting someone you have never met into your home without any indication from you that it would be okay. They didn't ask, they just informed you it was happening. The fact they led with the fact that you seemed to be in a good mood shows they knew it wasn't a good idea, they just thought you would be a doormat and allow it. Continue to stand up for yourself and the safety of your children, you are not in the wrong. I, 33 female, am currently 5 months pregnant. My husband, 35 male, is on a business trip and should be back next month. This is my first pregnancy and I am still required to go to the office to work. When I first met my husband he was very skinny and a very unhealthy weight and would genuinely avoid a lot of foods. I thought he was just picky, but once I managed to get him to try my cooking and he actually enjoyed it, I found out this is due to my mother-in-law cooking. My husband said that this is because my cooking is very different from his mother's. I was confused at first, but eventually, I have been invited over and realized what he meant. His mother doesn't add any spices, sauces or herbs to her cooking. No salt, sugar, or pepper, and the only oil used to cook is vegetable oil, so everything tastes bland because she believes this is healthy, which resulted in my husband believing all the food tastes bland and horrible. So of course when I got together with my husband he ended up trying new foods and gaining healthy weight. On Wednesday I made some curry. I normally try to do some meal prep and had a few meals in the freezer and was planning to use those, but had a very bad curry craving. I have made too much and was planning to have some the next day since I don't really mind eating the same meal a few times a day/week, so I left the spares in the fridge. While I was at work my in-laws decided to visit and check up on me. They have a spare key just in case something goes wrong. When I came back home I was really hungry and wanted to put curry in the microwave to find out it is not in the fridge and instead, there's a dish made by my mother-in-law. I called her and asked what happened to my food and she said she tried it and it tasted spoiled, so she threw it away and she made me something healthy. I ended up ordering takeaway that day as in my current state I find her cooking beyond revolting. Today I put the fish she made in the container and gave it to the homeless person. Unfortunately, it seems someone saw me doing that as within a few hours I got dozens of messages calling me an a-hole, including my mother-in-law. My husband is on my side here, but am I the a-hole?